Tonight, the debate took an unexpected turn. Trump tried to dominate, but Jasmine Crockett didn't just respond. She took control, dismantling arguments in seconds. What happened next left the entire room stunned, and social media is exploding over her fiery clapbacks. Stay tuned, because you won't believe how this all unfolded. The room was already tense before Donald Trump even leaned toward the microphone. Cameras were rolling. Aides stood frozen along the walls, and members of Congress sat locked in that familiar mix of anticipation and unease. This wasn't supposed to be a showdown. It was meant to be a routine exchange, a controlled debate, predictable talking points, and rehearsed dominance from a man who had made interruption an art form. Donald Trump had done this countless times before. He waited for his moment, then cut in sharply, his voice rising just enough to seize control of the room. "That's not what's really happening," he said, waving off the previous speaker. "Let me explain how this actually works." For a split second, it looked like the room would fall into the same old rhythm, Trump talking over everyone, redirecting the narrative and forcing others to react on his terms. But across the table, Jasmine Crockett didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't interrupt. Back. She didn't raise her voice. She simply looked at him. That alone changed everything. Trump continued, speaking faster now, stacking claims on top of claims. He talked about authority, about experience, about how debates like this had always gone his way. He spoke as if the floor already belonged to him, as if the conversation was finished the moment he decided it was. But Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, resting her hands calmly on the table. "Mr. Trump," she said evenly, "you don't get to take over the debate. Just because you're uncomfortable with the facts." The room went quiet. Not stunned silence, the kind of silence where everyone knows something has shifted. Trump turned toward her, visibly irritated. "Excuse me?" he snapped. "I'm responding. That's how this works." Crockett didn't match his energy. That was the mistake he didn't see coming. "No," she replied, her voice steady but sharp. "That's how you try to make it work." A few heads turned. Pens stopped moving. One staffer near the back glanced up from their notes. Trump tried again, cutting in mid-sentence. "If you'd let me finish," she raised a finger. Not aggressively, but decisively. "You've finished," Crockett said. "You just didn't realize it yet." That landed. Trump leaned back in his chair, lips pressed together, clearly annoyed. He smiled, that familiar, tight smile, as if brushing her off. But Crockett wasn't done. She laid out her point carefully, piece by piece, refusing to rush. She referenced the claim Trump had just made, then calmly dismantled it. She pointed out where his argument contradicted his own past statements. She reminded the room of documented records, timelines, and facts that couldn't be interrupted away. Each sentence landed clean. Trump attempted to jump in again, but this time the moderator hesitated, unsure whether to give him the floor or let Crockett continue. That hesitation said everything. Crockett noticed it too. "This is exactly the problem," she continued, now addressing the room, not just Trump. "Every time facts get uncomfortable, the volume goes up. The interruptions start. And suddenly we're debating tone instead of truth." She turned back to Trump. "And I'm not giving that back to you." For the first time. Trump didn't immediately respond. He shifted in his seat, glancing briefly toward the moderator, then back at Crockett. His posture had changed, no longer leaning forward in control, but sitting back, reassessing. The debate had moved off his script. Crockett held the moment without raising her voice, without theatrics. Just control, and everyone in the room could feel it. Because Trump hadn't just lost a sentence, he'd lost the rhythm. And once that was gone, the balance of power in the room was no longer his. The cameras kept rolling, catching every subtle shift in body language, every tight smile and raised eyebrow. Journalists scribbled notes frantically, sensing that this wasn't just another political exchange. It was a moment that could define reputations. Trump's aides leaned in, whispering rapidly, trying to salvage the narrative. They handed him papers, pointed at talking points, and muttered reminders of previous debates where he had emerged unscathed. But he wasn't just facing Crockett. He was facing a room that suddenly recognized her poise, her strategy, and her unwillingness to be overshadowed. Crockett, meanwhile, didn't falter. She let the whispers of aides, the shuffling of papers, and the glare from Trump's side slide past her. Every word she had prepared, every carefully chosen fact, now carried weight, amplified by his frustration. "You continue to interrupt because the truth doesn't suit your narrative," Crockett said, her eyes locking with Trump's. "But interrupting won't make falsehoods facts." The room shifted. Some leaned forward, some exchanged subtle glances. Even Trump's allies began to notice the subtle mastery of her delivery, the calm confidence that meets confidence that needs cast. Refused to escalate even as the opposition attempted to dominate the room. Trump raised his hand. Fingers splayed as if to physically hold the floor. "I've been talking long before you," he began. Crockett cut him off, gently but decisively. "You've been talking, yes. But talking isn't the same as leading the conversation responsibly." There was a murmur from the audience. She didn't raise her voice, but the words resonated louder than any interruption he could muster. Trump's frustration was now tangible, a tension crackling in the air like static electricity. He leaned back in his chair, trying to regain composure, scanning for support among the moderators. None offered it. The room had shifted allegiance, at least in attention, toward Crockett. Crockett's strategy wasn't just reactionary. It was surgical. She highlighted the contradictions in his claims, referenced past records, and explained complex policy points in a manner that was impossible to dismiss. Every sentence seemed to slice through the rehearsed armor Trump had brought with him. At one point, he attempted to interject with a sarcastic remark about her experience. Crockett didn't flinch. She waited for him to finish, then responded with a calm, precise retort that left his comment sounding hollow. Her words weren't just offense, they were offense. And the timing made all the difference. By now, the room had completely transformed. What started as a standard debate had morphed into a showcase of political acumen. Crockett wasn't simply responding. She was controlling the pace, the focus, and the energy. She was turning the debate into her arena, one where interruption and theatrics had no power. Trump's interruptions grew sharper, faster, but each one was met with the same composed, fact-driven responses. Crockett didn't need to raise her voice. The contrast between her calm and his aggression made the point clearer than any raised tone ever could. At one moment, she paused, scanning the room. Every camera lens seemed to capture her stillness. Every journalist's pen noted her precision. Even those predisposed to support Trump couldn't ignore the clarity in her argument, the logical sequencing, the undeniable grounding in facts. "You cannot dominate a debate simply by volume," Crockett said, voice steady, unwavering. "Leadership is measured by clarity, by evidence, by the courage to face truth, not by who shouts loudest." The words echoed. Silence fell over parts of the room, not the stunned silence of shock, but the quiet of realization. The narrative had shifted. The floor no longer belonged to Trump. The momentum, once firmly his, had been wrested away by her strategy and composure. Trump's aides exchanged hurried whispers, trying to recalibrate while Crockett continued. She highlighted policy flaws, contradictions, and the real-world implications of the decisions being defended. Each point landed with precision, and the room could sense the difference between scripted rhetoric and informed insight, even as the clock ticked and cameras clicked. Crockett maintained control. Her calm authority was now the anchor for the room, while Trump's frustration became increasingly visible. For every attempt he made to regain dominance, she provided a counterbalance that was both subtle and devastating by the end of the exchange. It was clear to everyone watching in that room, on the screens, and across social media clips that would soon circulate that this wasn't just a debate. It was a lesson in power dynamics, preparation, and the impact of unwavering composure in high stakes political confrontation. The aftermath of that heated exchange began unfolding even before the debate stage was cleared. Social media buzzed with clips of Crockett's responses, each snippet going viral faster than most political moments could. Analysts dissected her every sentence, her timing, her choice of words, praising her composure. Noting the impact of her facts over theatrics, inside the studio, Trump's aides scrambled. Phones buzzed constantly as they monitored live reactions, trying to measure damage control. The stark contrast between her poise and his frustration was now becoming a story in itself. Comments poured in. Crockett owned the room. Trump couldn't land a point. Finally, a candidate with clarity. Crockett's calm didn't waver. She moved from point to point with meticulous precision, never giving an inch to distraction or intimidation. She highlighted economic inconsistencies, questioned policy practicality, and underscored human consequences, all without a hint of condescension. The audience could sense her intellect and her capacity to hold her ground in high-pressure scenarios. Trump, visibly agitated, attempted several times to interject. Each time, Crockett's responses didn't just counter him. They exposed gaps in his arguments. She referenced data, past statements, and real-life examples, making his interruptions appear not only ineffective, but almost performative. The room's energy shifted again. Whispers and glances indicated that viewers and attendees alike recognized the growing dominance of her presence. Moderators tried to maintain control, but even they had to acknowledge the undeniable command Crockett held over the dialogue. Her strategic pacing, emphasis on key points, and refusal to be distracted by theatrics forced the debate into a different rhythm, one that Trump struggled to adapt to. At one critical moment, she leaned slightly forward, a gesture subtle yet commanding. "You can't rewrite facts with volume," she said. "Policies affect real people, and rhetoric alone won't fix that." Every word landed with deliberate clarity. Cameras captured her steady gaze, calm expression, and assertive posture, making the moment iconic for anyone watching. Trump's reactions became increasingly reactive, almost defensive. Attempts to pivot or redirect the conversation fell flat against Crockett's preparation and composure. The more he tried to dominate, the more she illuminated weaknesses in his narrative. Each factual rebuttal, calmly presented, amplified the contrast between rational discourse and performance-based interruption. Behind the scenes, campaign strategists on both sides were frantic. Media rooms buzzed with commentary, live updates, and breaking social media trends. Influencers and journalists alike started sharing clips highlighting her moments of clarity, her ability to articulate complex issues in simple terms, and her unwavering confidence under pressure. Crockett's mastery wasn't just in responding, it was in controlling the narrative. She used the floor to redefine what leadership looked like in the room, a balance of knowledge, calm authority, and undeniable logic. She wasn't reacting to chaos. She was shaping it, turning interruptions into opportunities to reinforce her position. As the debate neared its end, the difference in energy was unmistakable. Crockett's audience attention was nearly complete. Even undecided viewers found themselves drawn to her presence. Trump, despite previous successes in debates, found his influence waning. Every gesture, pause, and inflection from Crockett was setting the tone by the conclusion of that segment. The takeaway was clear. This was more than just a political exchange. It was a masterclass in handling high-pressure confrontation, in leveraging facts over noise, and in demonstrating that composure and preparation could overpower aggression and interruption. For those watching, Crockett had not only defended her stance, she had redefined the expectations for debates in real time. The ripple effects were immediate. Clips were shared across platforms, commentary sections exploded with praise, and the narrative started framing her as a formidable figure, someone capable of challenging even the most aggressive opposition and prevailing through intellect, strategy, and calm authority. The final moments of the debate were electric. Crockett's focus remained unbroken, her delivery precise, and her points resonant with anyone paying attention. Trump, fatigued by repeated counters and the constant spotlight on inconsistencies, struggled to maintain composure. The contrast between their demeanors was stark, her calm authority versus his rising frustration. Crockett seized the opportunity to bring the conversation full circle. She addressed the broader issues underlying the debate, linking policy to real-life consequences. When decisions are made without accountability, she stated, people suffer. And that is what this debate is about. Real people, real problems, real solutions. The audience responded with nods and murmurs of agreement. Her words struck a chord far deeper than any talking point could. Social media exploded in real time. Clips of her delivering concise, powerful rebuttals were being shared thousands of times within minutes. Analysts dissected her statements on live news streams, praising the clarity, logic, and strategy behind every word. The moment became more than a debate highlight. It became a reference point for political discourse online. Trump attempted one last interruption, pointed remark intended to regain control. Crockett didn't flinch. She waited for a brief pause, then countered with a statement that cut through the chaos. Volume doesn't create truth. Policies impact lives, and facts cannot be ignored. The room fell silent for a moment. Even some of Trump's supporters seemed to recognize the weight behind her statement. The moderators struggled to regain control, but it was clear the narrative had shifted. Crockett had dominated the debate without ever raising her voice unnecessarily. Every challenge had been met with composure, preparation, and undeniable logic. Her performance had not just defended her position, it had redefined the debate's energy entirely. Behind the scenes, campaign teams on both sides were in overdrive. Analysts and strategists documented every moment, every word, every reaction. The viral potential of Crockett's performance was evident. And teams realized the broader implications for public perception and media coverage. For some, this debate was not just about policy anymore. It was about influence, credibility, and who could command attention while remaining unshaken. As the debate drew to a close, Crockett's final statements encapsulated her approach, measured, factual, and focused. She addressed the audience with a sense of urgency and empathy. Leadership requires more than rhetoric. It requires responsibility, transparency, and commitment to solutions that matter. The applause was genuine, resonating with viewers both inside the hall and watching remotely. Newsrooms began compiling highlight reels instantly. Social media trends skyrocketed, framing Crockett as the debate's undeniable standout. Articles and tweets emphasized her composure, her ability to manage pressure, and the factual precision of her responses. The debate clips went viral, not because of spectacle, but because her performance resonated with authenticity and authority. Even political commentators, who had been skeptical, acknowledged her dominance. Her style, calm, logical, prepared, and assertive, had not only countered aggressive tactics, but had set a new benchmark for how debates could be conducted. By the end of the evening, the conversation wasn't just about the policies discussed. It was about the demonstration of leadership itself. The ripple effects continued the next day. Analysis, discussions, and viral posts positioned Crockett as a figure capable of taking on even the most aggressive opposition while remaining composed. Her performance became a case study in effective communication, strategic debate management, and the impact of measured authority over theatrics for viewers. The takeaway was clear. Jasmine Crockett had not merely participated in a debate. She had reshaped expectations. Her calm, confident, and prepared approach became a blueprint for public engagement, illustrating the power of intelligence, strategy, and composure in high-stakes situations. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, the outcome was undeniable. Crockett had won more than the debate. She had captured the narrative, influenced public perception, and left a lasting impression that would echo through news cycles, social media, and political conversations for weeks to come. Her ability to reclaim control, confront challenges head-on, and maintain poise under pressure had turned a single debate into a defining political moment.